than Mel to bring on and talk about this. Mel, great to see you.
Great to see you. Coincidences, I guess.
Yeah, I don't believe in coincidences, but it's so strange. The Pope dies, and then suddenly also we hear that Klaus Schwab is resigning, the WHO backing down. Now, we have reported, and I'm sure you have as well, for almost about a year now that Klaus was preparing to step down, and he was going to be sort of handing the keys over to his family, basically, right? So they're going to kind of keep it in the family. But it's just that the timing seemed very, very strange. It seemed almost immediate. What do you make of this?
Well, first of all, I agree with what you said in the intro. I think that they're reorganizing. I think that they have gotten far too negative press on the people that have been representing them for a long time. And I would keep an eye on the banking institutions behind them, because what is really happening, in my opinion, is that by any means necessary, they want to keep the structure that was above them, basically the IMF, the World Bank, the World Trade Organization, all the way up to the Bank of International Settlements, are the partners of these United Nations tentacles and the NGOs. So they're basically at this point doing whatever they need to do to, I think, continue down the path of their plans for Agenda 2030, while at the same time looking like they're going to change their image. But the people you should keep an eye on are the ones that run what I call the parent company. And that would be people like Larry Fink and Mark Carney and Mertz, that just is going to be probably put in Germany. These are all people that created the EU, which is essentially Davos and the government wing of Davos. And it appears to me that they are reacting, A, to Trump's tariffs, and B, to their own lack of the ability for them to go forward without America. So we do have to realize that I think it's really a change of the narrative, which is they wrote the great narrative, so that's what they do, rather than the end of the globalists. But certainly there is a shakeup in their world.
I think it's fascinating you bring up the financial structure around it, because we saw some moves from the IMF, and you just mentioned the IMF over the past 24 hours about downgrading, the world, basically. The IMF is like, right now the world sucks is basically what their downgrade was over the past 24, moving in that direction. So do you think that this is all part of this?
Yeah, I do. I think that they've been running this whole conglomerate, and you can even go down to the Council of Foreign Relations, Chatham House, all the people that consider themselves the super class and have been in that position basically since 1971, when the World Economic Forum started, when Kissinger took us off the gold standard, and the EU was born out of the Marshall Fund. Well, right now they have deindustrialized almost the entire Europe that is involved in the EU. They've really hurt, I believe, the nation states within the EU. And I think that they are on the brink of financial collapse in their whole model. And in order to continue down this road, they're pushing towards World War III with Russia is not a threat to Europe. And yet you see Macron and Germany and Poland and Estonia all talking about pushing towards war. And I would suggest, as World War I and World War II have proven, they need the war to keep their financial model going. Because if you go to the Bank of International Settlements and their offshoots, the World Trade Organization, IMF, World Bank, they tend to really do well after wars. And I think that they are pushing towards war by any means necessary to keep the financial system structured, because then they go into buying weapons from our military industrial complex, which is, of course, on the stock market, and all partners of the World Economic Forum as well. So we kind of have to look at it as, again, this is a group of people that look at the world in terms of, we own this planet, we're the parent company, and those 8 billion people are lucky they live here. And there's enough pushback between Trump and several leaders around the world, Meloni, obviously Orban, Bukele, there's just leaders everywhere that are siding with Trump on ending the wars. So for me, I think that the model has always been based around, especially that model that leads to Switzerland, paying for both sides of wars in order to create a war economy. And right now, the threat of Trump and others wanting to have peace by any means necessary and figuring out peace is the main problem that they're faced with. And that is really where I think we are. They're rebranding so that we don't really, or they think we won't see the change in dialogue and the change in words and the inversion of words. But I think we've seen it long enough that we will see them come out with a brand new face. It won't be Build Back Better, but it will be something.
You bring up the catalyst. I was going to ask you, I think the catalyst could be a number of things. COVID, it could be some mass pandemic, et cetera, war. And they use this to usher in a lack, to remove our civil liberties, whether it's the Patriot Act. But I think we're marching towards a surveillance state in a way that we maybe didn't anticipate, or there have been smart people who've been anticipating it, but they're sort of couching it around. It's all about our security. It's our border security, biometrics at the border, the real ID. We saw Kristi Noem coming out and pushing that, obviously, a couple of weeks ago. So it seems like a different strategy here, or maybe I don't know how they're going to couch it for us. So it seems like they're trying to couch it in terms of our safety once again. Right. And we always sort of kowtow to this, right? It's always about our safety. We need this real ID.
Exactly. And don't forget the global public infrastructure that was built by the UN and the World Economic Forum, with a lot of players that were involved in building the social credit score and the technate that is China, are very invested in that spreading throughout the world. So, the hard part with everyone that was very pro-Trump, Trump won, and it was like we won. And I was thinking, well, we didn't win until we dismantle this globalist, technocracy that has been built for us. That was Agenda 2030, the 17 development goals, the whole climate emergency, which is all about basically capturing all natural resources and humanity in general in the hands of this small, elitist group of global public-private partner stakeholders. We are at a place where that is the battle. The battle right now is that they have the technology set up. They have all of that. And my questions, when people come out and they say, well, if Trump's recommending Real ID, it can't be bad. They didn't rewrite the Real ID Act in the last few months. This goes all the way back to 9/11, and it wasn't passed multiple times. And now the question is, because we have all the tech bros, up there, we have Larry Ellison and we have Sachs and we have, Musk and all of them. Well, they are part of the global public infrastructure with the satellites and the surveillance and the Palantir. So the problem is we can't be too pro anything that's thrown at us to mean safety or security or stability. Right now, we're kind of like a world that's in one of those glass, things you shake at Christmas, and all the snow's all over the place, and we don't know where it's going to land. And that's why the American people have to pay very close attention to what are you walking into, and are you asking the right questions? Because as we know, data has replaced, and this is worldwide, certainly up to the UN World Economic Forum folks, data has replaced oil and money. So again, where is this data going? Who has access to the Real ID? Is this also on the global public infrastructure? Because the same guys that are, behind this have been behind everything else with the World Economic Forum. And then you have two big World Economic Forum people entering in Germany and probably in Canada. So as much as we, the people of the United States, need to be eyes wide open, we have to ask the right questions. And I don't see enough people, other than your show and maybe a couple others, even saying like, well, is this globalism, but with technocracy, which is worse?
Right. And one of my big disappointments in the sort of the MAGA movement, regardless of how you feel about Trump, is sort of the blindness. They're sort of just sleepwalking into the very things that they fought against: the surveillance state, the censorship industrial complex, the sort of, watching us on our phones, all of this stuff. And I think there's a huge blind spot. Either it's intentional or they just don't know about it on the MAGA side right now, where they're just allowing this to happen. I mean, you saw the story today from Palantir, over the past few days. Palantir is helping Doge with a massive IRS data project. So Palantir is all about big data. It has its hands deep inside of the Trump administration right now, and now it's going to be working with Doge on IRS.
And the border. And the truth is, Palantir is a global company. We have to remember these companies like BlackRock and Palantir and these NGOs like Open Society and the Gates Foundation, they are global. We look at them as they are America. They are not America. They are global public-private partners and stakeholders of the World Economic Forum and the international banking cartel, as I call them. So again, we are not prioritizing our local communities. What we're doing in Real real time, how we're fighting on the ground. We should all be looking at Doge and starting Doges where we are, looking at these names of these NGOs and identifying them in our own backyards, because we have been infiltrated. And this has to do with surveillance and where, like, they put in all these smart meters. People aren't saying, where does that go? People are walking up and getting their eyes scanned, not having seen, I guess, Minority Report, not saying, you know, who sees this? What companies are involved here? There's a lot of back doors built in. And we have to also remember that China has a lot of access to our country. And frankly, at this point, it's seeming like the entire Congress and entire DC is unwilling or unable to make any moves that are positive for the American people by design. And that would then take me to the idea that a lot of these people are blackmailed, bribed, their family members work for NGOs, lobbyists. We're finding out a lot about all these foreign countries that pay all our universities and are lobbying. Our big deal is that we have to get money and private industry out of politics. I mean, it cannot sustain itself, but as long as it's in there, it's going to push for profit from war and profit from, you know, telling us that we need their help to survive. And here, you know, take your real ID and your internet wallet and go forward. And that's why it's suspect to me that the World Health Organization and some of these other groups look like they're backing down in real time while I see them continuing to build the infrastructure.
Yeah, I think that's the key, right? It's very exciting to see Klaus Schwab, Dr. Evil himself, stepping down, this figurehead, but it's like a hydra. I mean, we know how deep this thing goes into the United Nations. You mentioned like Mark Carney in Canada. So they've got all these proteges, these leaders, these members of Congress, these governors, these mayors. It's infiltrated our school system. Yep. So we need to be vigilant. And this is a time when you can't just sort of blindly say like, oh, I love J.D. Vance. He's amazing. There's a lot to love about the guy. But forget the Palantir connections. Forget the money that, you know, was given. Yeah, just look away from that stuff because you like J.D. Vance.
Right. Well, we also have to start taking responsibility for ourselves. It has been many, many decades. Again, we just had the JFK stuff come out. You're looking at that and you're thinking, how can it be that nobody inside our government has ever been held accountable for betraying the people of this country? Frankly, there's been multiple, all the way up to Crossfire Hurricane and the pandemic, multiple instances of great betrayal. I mean, conspiracy to defraud the people of the United States of America. And yet, a few months into the Trump administration, and we've seen the fraud with Act Blue. We've seen all of this USAID. We've seen the money trail be exposed. And my question is, why can't we go after the white collar crimes that you can easily prove because numbers don't lie and start there? So I am at a place where it's like, I don't want to go on down this path because we all know that once they start giving weapons to the EU that insanely wants to go forward with war, then it starts a whole new financial cycle and we're stuck in it again. And if they just went after some of the money that we have already seen exposed and some of the players, we will have a situation where we, the people, can actually start to feel like we're in good shape.
Yes, I mean, you saw that meme over the past week with the action figure that was shared all over social media of Pam Bondi. They're calling her the inaction figure, and it's like, you know, we just want arrests. We want prosecutions of these people. Follow the money. It's very easy to do, right? You know exactly.
They did it to Trump. Why can't they do it to one or two people? What about Samantha Power at USAID or Mayorkas? He didn't get a pardon. These people betrayed the people of the United States, or the 51 intelligence agents that conspired to lie to the country before an election. There are things that we know could if it was the other side, they would have been indicted within 4 days. And that's where the frustration, I think, is coming with people that really worked to get Trump in there. And now we're saying, okay, well, only a few more months and then their 2026 cycle will kick in and all the billionaires will pour in again and we'll be right where we were.
Yeah, we need more people like you out there, Mel, seriously, who not afraid to tell the truth and no BS, you know, not pulling your punches. I just can't. I'm just over the people pulling their punches. Stop pulling your punches. We need to punch hard and we need to punch back at this stuff. And I love what you do. So